Hey everyone, it's Pam Rader, and welcome back to Authenticity Unleashed, where we dive in and get real. Because the more real we are, the more connected we are, the more aligned we are, the more fulfilled we are, the more peaceful we are. And inauthenticity is one of the greatest causes of dis-ease on the planet right now. So I'm on a mission to help you, me, all of us get real where we're not being real and move a little closer to all those wonderful things. So I want to give you a tool today. I want to give you a tool that it could change everything for you. If you're really honest with yourself and really thorough in your examination of where this thing shows up in your life. And this one simple tool, it's really simple, but it's not easy. This one simple tool could change everything if you really take it on. But I'm not sure you're going to want to when I tell you what it is. Because this one tool is where we've been hiding for a really long time. This one tool reveals where we've been hiding for a really long time. So what is it? Well, if you want to be more happy, more fulfilled, more joyful, more connected, more at ease in your life, experience more equanimity, then you could just do this one thing, this one simple thing, and probably experience all of those things. What's that one thing? Give up your need to be right. And in particular, give up your need to be right about how others are wrong. Now, this is a juicy one. We love to be right. We love to be right more than we love to be happy. And it turns out that we love to be right about things that matter not, things that really are of no consequence in the universe, folks. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, have you ever driven somewhere with your partner and they took a different route than you said they should or thought they should? Have you ever sent your partner to the grocery store and they come back with a different brand of peanut butter than you like? You know, there are so many small ways that we get ourselves bent out of shape and make other people wrong. And then we point the finger at them as the cause of our suffering. But I got news for you. It's actually not them making you suffer. It's the fact that you are making them wrong for it. You're building a federal case in your mind about why you're right and they're wrong. And that meaning that you layer onto it generates an emotion that leads to a behavior that leads to a result. So when I make someone wrong, when I decide that my husband should drive a different route than he's driving and he's not reading my mind and he's taking the way that he would like to go to wherever we're going, and I'm in my mind seething about how he should go a different way and we never talked about this, etc., he's sitting in the driver's seat completely peaceful and happy, unaware. And meanwhile, I've made it mean that he's doing something wrong to me. I'm over there worked up, angry, resentful, and then I don't treat him the way that I'd like to treat him. It's sort of like holding on to a hot coal, waiting to throw it at your enemy. And you're the one that gets burned. And we make people wrong about everything because we love to be right about everything. We love to be right about, the kind of car we drive. We love to be right about our politics. We love to be right about the kind of music we like. We love to be right about policies and how the government should run. And we love to be right about how the neighbors should live and about how other people should raise their kids. We love to be right about just about everything. Well, why? Well, that's a little more complicated. We love to be right because it's part of our identity, how we perceive the world, how we look around and our ideas that we've held, the beliefs that we've clung to and collected that might not even be ours, those are how we've made sense of the world for however many years we are old. And when someone does something differently or thinks something different than we think, it actually challenges our identity. And often we'll get defensive and protective as a means of still understanding who we are. So our need to be right is tied in with our attachment to our current identity. Now here's the thing, folks. We're malleable. We can change. There's all kinds of versions of us. And if we're willing to take on new information, to consider new points of view, we just become better and better versions of ourselves as we go along. But when we cling to our righteousness about whatever it is we're being right about, the prize is that we get to stay the same. When we argue for our current reality, the prize is that we get to keep it. And that's not always a great prize. Now, you might say, well, some people do things wrong, and I should be mad at them. And this is not letting people off the hook for bad behavior, but you're relieving yourself of the burden of anger and resentment and blame and powerlessness. Because when you blame someone else for your suffering, you have handed them the keys to your happiness. So you won't be happy until they change their behavior. Well, that's a powerless place to be. Or you could stop making them wrong, stop being in an argument with reality because they did whatever they did, whether it's right, wrong, good, or bad, they did it. The only question should be, well, who am I going to be in this? What am I going to do? Now, I've had some major firsthand experience with making people wrong and suffering for it. I've done it in thousands of ways in my life, but none so profound as on the journey with my son who struggled with addiction for about 15 years. And maybe 10 years ago, he was really deeply in intravenous heroin use and all of the things that go with that. And I was so angry. And I made him wrong, and I made the school wrong, and I made the therapists wrong, and the coaches wrong, and his father wrong for him being an addict. I made it wrong all around. And what I realized looking back is that my needing to be right about him being wrong for being an addict was a strange kind of control. It was a way that I could hide my fear. You see, when we really need to be right, it's a strange kind of power that's born from fear. When we're willing to say, I don't know, or I'm curious, or I'm not right, we get the opportunity for growth. But when we're scared, we cling to our identity. We cling to what we think we know. So my son was in addiction. He struggled. He suffered. It was really sad. And at the time, I was really mad. I tried to control it. I yelled at him, screamed at him, tried to control his actions, did all the things that parents often do in my situation. And of course, none of that was to any avail because at that point, I didn't understand addiction to the degree that I do now. And I certainly didn't understand that nobody wants to be an addict. And number two, I didn't know any other way. So I had been reading I have been a yoga teacher now for about 25 years, and I've studied a lot of spiritual texts. But my teacher, Baron Baptiste, wrote an amazing book called The 9 Practices of Being of Power. And at some point, about a decade ago, I picked up his book, which I had read many times, and I reread a passage in it that said something like, as long as there is war in your heart, there will never be peace on the planet. Don't worry about what's going on in the White House. Worry about what's going on in your house. And so this hit me really hard. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm at war with my son. And that's not who I want to be. I knew I didn't want him to be an addict, but making him wrong for it wasn't solving anything. And I was certainly suffering. And our relationship was suffering. So, what I decided to do was to be in the practice of what I preached, which is give up what you must. Give up what you must to get what you want. Well, what did I want? I wanted a relationship with my son. I wanted my son to feel seen, heard, known, and loved. And in order to get there, to be the kind of mom where he could come and talk to me and I wasn't losing my mind, I had to give up making him wrong for being an addict. Now, we could go into all day long. Of course, I had to create boundaries and there were a lot of things I had to learn. But at the basis of the shift in our relationship was this. I decided to give up making him wrong so that I could get free from my suffering. So I called him. I called my son and I said, Nick, I apologize for making you wrong. It must be so terrible to have to battle addiction every single day and feel all the things you must feel, and then have your mother, the person who's supposed to love you the most in the whole wide world, making you wrong at every turn. And I just don't want to do that. Can you forgive me? And you know what's interesting? My son, up to that point, he hadn't really embarked on any treatment. He hadn't expressed any desire to get better. And he had blamed everyone else for his addiction. But the moment that I took responsibility for my side of the street, just my part, I've been over here making you wrong, then he took responsibility too. It seems like responsibility is contagious. So he says to me, Mom, there's nothing to forgive. You are the only reason I'm alive today. And I'm here because of my choices, not because of anything you did. There's nothing to forgive. And that was the beginning of our relationship healing. It felt so good to be able to just show up and be a yes for loving my son as he was and as he wasn't. Now, I can tell you the good news. A decade later, my son is 30. He's been clean for coming up to 2 years. He's got an amazing life. But our relationship remained intact even in the years when he was using and things weren't good because I didn't make him wrong for it. I was not in an argument with reality. I said, this is what's happening and I can love him or I can punish both of us by making him wrong. So ask yourself, where am I causing my own suffering by just making other people wrong? Maybe it's in small things like you're making your sister wrong for not showing up the way you'd like her to in your life. Maybe you're making your boss wrong for the way that he or she operates in the workplace. Maybe you're making someone in your family wrong for how they speak to you. Now, if you gave up making them wrong, what could you take responsibility for? And what would be possible for you then? Giving up making people wrong could possibly be the most powerful, clear path to feeling more free in our lives. So, once you clean up a mess or two like this, when you actually call someone up and say, hey, or talk to someone and say, the cause of the breakdown in the relationship isn't really what you did. It's that I've been over here resenting you, making up things about it, causing you to be wrong for it. And I'm keeping the war alive in my head every time I think about it. And then I don't treat you the way that I would like to treat you. And when we can clean up that mess, we have access to healing, access to new levels of communication, new levels of depth. And make no mistake, folks, that's authentic. That's real. Making someone else wrong, that's a cop out. You are 100% responsible for your happiness, and you are 100% responsible for your results. So if you're unhappy, ask yourself, who am I resenting? Who am I blaming? Who am I making wrong? And how can I get out of that drama triangle? What messes do I have to clean up to get free? So I invite you, as you go forward today and in the future, to just notice all the little ways that you make people wrong. And if you just take a breath and you pause and say, like, does this really matter? And am I willing to drink this poison and wait for my enemy to die? Or would it be more powerful for me to just let them be? Aristotle said to be and let be was the essence of real power. And this is what we're talking about here, folks, is, to be and let be. So I hope I've given you some food for thought. I hope I've given you something to chew on. And maybe there's an apology that you could make that could heal some relationship in your life. I'm so glad that I was able to heal my relationship with my precious son. It's one of the greatest joys in my life to have maintained and nurtured and nourished that relationship. And I believe it's one of the reasons that he made it through his addiction, and he managed to have connection because I was stopped being so flippin' stubborn. So have an amazing day. I look forward to seeing you next time, and unleash your authenticity today.